Welcome everyone to the first episode of Stunts and Their Stories. We're here today to share with the stunt community as well as the entire entertainment industry the history behind stunts and their stories. Today's episode is being filmed in the Historic Stuntmen's Association of Motion Pictures office, which was founded in February 1961 by two forward-thinking visionary Hollywood stuntmen that single-handedly changed the course of the industry by professionalizing the realm of stunts in the motion picture industry. So thanks very much for the Stuntmen's Association for letting us use their office today. We're very fortunate to have with us today four iconic stunt performers and honored to be able to share their stories with us. Between the four, they have a combined 250 years of performing stunts in the business.
And that's just Bobby.
And speaking of Bobby, he's the first one I'm introducing. I have the privilege to first introduce a gentleman who was born in September 23rd, 1924, with over 300 stunt credits, along with more than 60 acting credits in both TV and film. Just to name a few, and there's probably going to be more than a few, he appeared in such movies as The Ten Commandments, Rio Bravo, The Absent-Minded Professor, Diamonds Are Forever, Blazing Saddles, Rocky, The Enforcer, Pal Rider, Dick Tracy, Batman Returns, True Lies, and Lethal Weapon 4, along with TV series I Spy, I Dream of Jeannie, Mission Impossible, The Green Hornet, Wild Wild West, Bonanza, Marcus Welby, MD, Airwolf, The A-Team, and Dallas. He's doubled, just to name a few, Tony Curtis, Cliff Robertson, and Ernest Borgnine, and his career spanned from 1950 to 2011. Over 60 years, everybody, please welcome Bobby Herron. The second gentleman was born April 15th, 1928, also with over 150 stunt credits, with 30 acting credits and also 10 second unit directing credits. His movies included High Sierra, Bonnie and Clyde, classic, Battle for the Planet of the Apes, The Towering Inferno, which by the way all four of them were in, which was nice to know, Escape from New York, Jaws, The Revenge, Midnight Run, Moonwalker, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Naked Gun 2.5, and Aaron Brockovich, along with the TV series Nichols, Quincy M.E., BJ and the Bear, Matlock, Twin Peaks, and the Rockford Files. And some of the people he's doubled has been Clark Gable, John Wayne, and of course, James Gardner for many, many years, with his career spanning from 1941 to 2002. Also over 60 years of experience. Please welcome Roy Clark. It's so worth it just to read some of these. I mean, these are just a minuscule amount of their credits that they've done. Our next performer is one of the matriarchs and a huge role model for the women in the business. She was born January 27, 1941, with over 150 stunt credits and 30 acting credits. Some of her credits include Hello, Dolly, The Poseidon Adventure, Blazing Saddles, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, The Jerk, very funny movie, Blues Brothers, Smokey and the Bandit 2, Cannonball Run, Blade Runner, RoboCop, Beverly Hills Cop 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Con Air, Rush Hour 2, Kill Bill Volume 2, and The Amazing Spider-Man, and along with the TV series, The Big Valley, The Bionic Woman, Wonder Woman for many years, of course, Charlie's Angels, Dynasty, Tales from the Crypt, and a very Brady sequel, just to name a few, obviously. She's doubled Linda Carter, Linda Evans, Tanya Roberts, and Lindsay Wagner, amongst many more, with her career starting in 1951 at the age of 10, and still working today. Please welcome Jeannie Epper. And last, we have the perfectionist of the trapeze, the big top circus man, born February 11th, 1932, with over 85 stunt credits, 20 acting credits, 5 producing credits. Some of his credits include The Big Circus, Towering Inferno again, Amazing Dobermans, which I really enjoyed, Poltergeist, Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Hook, Robin Hood, Men in Tights, My Favorite Martian, and Water for Elephants. along with TV series Little House on the Prairie, Dukes of Hazzard, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, Circus of the Stars, Twin Peaks, American Gladiator, and Strong Medicine. He has doubled Arnold Schwarzenegger because of his ability, believe it or not, yes, and also doubled Della Reese in a shot back in the day, which maybe he'll share with us that as well. With his career beginning in 1947 up until 2011, also over 60 years, please welcome Bob Yerkes. So obviously this is really about them, so I'm not going to do very much talking. I'm going to leave it up to them. So I just want to say, first off, it's very awesome, and I'm honored to have you guys here today to be part of this. It really is. So I'm just going to get started by asking you guys some questions, and I look forward to the answers and the stories you have to share with us about them. So the first question, I'll start one at a time, and you guys feel free to kick in as well, is starting with Bobby. What first got you excited or wanting to get into the business? Or what?
Actually, I just fell into it. Actually, my stepdad rented horses to the picture business, and so I wrangled horses for a while, and then I saw guys making all this money in front of camera, and I said, that's what I want to do. So I got into the business to make more money than I did as a wrangler. And it went on from there. I never thought of doing it for the rest of my life, but I ended up doing it for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Bobby, where was the ranch that you worked on as a wrangler, as a young man? Where is it now, and what is it now?
Well, it was at Coldwater Canyon and Sherman Way. It was 8 acres of a horse ranch. If you can visualize Sherman Way and Coldwater Canyon as being a horse ranch. But anyway, it was 8.5 acres of horse ranch, which Roy knows very well. He used to come out and ride there all the time. And
was that the Hudkins brothers?
One of it, the Hudkins Ranch, which is now Forest Lawn.
I was
Yeah.
going to tell that.
we leased 1,000 acres where Forest Lawn is. And Forest Lawn moved in a body one night, late at night, and once they moved a body in, you can't get a body out. So they ended up booting us out, and Forest Lawn took over. But we had a nice 1,000 acres up there across from Warner Brothers Studios. It was at the west end of, where Forest Lawn is now. So there's a little bit of history that went on there, which I kind of forgot about. Thank you.
All right, and then I'll pass the same question on to Roy. What was it that first got you?
Well, ironically, as we talk, believe it or not, Bobby and I were raised by the same family. Bobby came in, I was there already. I wound up at the ranch, living at the ranch for about 8 years, as the case may be. They did, as he said before, supplied the motion picture industry with livestock and horses. But I took care of 300 head of horses for $3 a day, and I lived at the ranch for 8 years. Bobby's, I say Big Bobby because I can talk about Bobby's, came in. His father was Ace Hudkins, a great fighter, and so through the Hudkins, that's where he came in 7 or 8 years later. I already lived there. I was raised by one of the brothers and lived there all that time. And it was really where you kind of got to start. I knew where the horses were going. I lived there, and I learned a lot about horses and horseback and stuff of that nature. And as history says, slowly got into being an extra, as the case may be, obviously. And the rest is kind of history, as we'll go along with the stories through this interview, is that how my life changed. But I lived there all that time. I lived in a bunkhouse just like a cowboy did, $22 a week. I rode to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, a horseback.
Did you ever have a hot shower?
Never took a hot shower. No, seriously, and this is true. It's just part of life. Never took a hot shower because they were not available for 8 years. There was a shower with a hose and a bulb like you wash your car with, and a toilet in the barn. We had 3 or 4 big barns. As I said, 300 head of horses, which I was responsible for. And I go back probably once a month. And ironically, as we talk, it's kind of part of my life, is that 18 years ago I bought a plot about 100 feet from where the bunkhouse was. It's where the little white church is right now. So it's a place I'm going back to, a place I'm proud of to have been a part of. And that's it.
Nice, nice. Thank you. And Jeannie?
Do I have
Can I ask
a?
one more question? Can I ask one more
Yep.
question of Roy?
Oh,
if you don't mind?
sure.
When your family came to California, it was during the Depression era and they were sharecroppers,
Yeah.
right? So just give us a little bit of that taste of what it was like to leave your home state.
Well, you know, there again, it's you know, I don't want to take the floor too much, but my family did here in 1931, and we wound up in Montrose, California, of all places. How in the hell you went up there? And you know, we traveled with the crops. I picked raspberries, strawberries, oranges, apples, you name it. Mattress on the bed. That was during the Depression time. I went to the 7th grade. Not poor me, but that was because of a necessity. It was in 1941 that this transaction, when my family went in two different directions. My mom took all my brothers to Las Vegas. My dad went to Inglewood. And I was fortunate enough to have been going from Highland Park, which is 35 miles, with the thumb. And I did it all the time. Right? And so when they made that move, they did, I had the opportunity to, one of the brothers, which is his stepdad, said, Roy, and they raised me. And just the rest is, you know, kind of history, because basically that's kind of what started my life, and I'm really proud to have been a part of that whole era. Like I said, I go back quite often to it, and you know, like Connie and different people in the audience here, certainly Bobby, Jeannie Epper, I got stories about her that you'll laugh yourself sick about. It's just part of a great memory, and hey, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, that's why we're here today. Thank you. And now I'll defer the question to Jeannie, how you first got into the biz, or what
Oh
was it
my
about
gosh. My dad, of course, everybody knows, was a stunt man. And his story is the real story of how he got in the biz. He owned a riding academy at Riverside Drive. Was it called the River Bottom? Connie, everybody went and drank and partied, and River Bottom. All the stars
the
went
River
there. Yep. I was too young, so I had to sit out in the car. Didn't take me long to graduate, though. From the car bench to the bar bench. Anyway, my dad got a call one day to deliver a horse, because whoever the gentleman was at that time couldn't get the horse to jump over a car. And so my father delivered the horse that he had, and the guy still couldn't get the horse to jump over the car. And so they looked at my dad and they said, since it's your horse, do you think you could do it? And my dad did it, first take. And that was his beginning into the business. And for him, it was like he couldn't imagine getting paid. I think he got paid like $25 or something. $3 to deliver the horse, maybe, and maybe $25. That may be too much money, huh? For jumping the horse. And we little rugrats at home, when my dad was working extra all the time, and he stunt doubled for Gary Cooper, for Errol Flynn, for Ronald Reagan. You know, during the 30s, it was a time of, there were no, I guess the rules weren't so strict in those days. Everybody partied. The stunt guys partied with the, you know how it was. Today you can't even go have a drink and not go to jail. So I'll go back and do the old days. I'll go back with my dad and do what he used to do. But they came to him one day and they said, do you have one of your little rugrats that can ride a horse bareback, kind of straight down the side of a mountain? And he said, well, yeah, Jeannie, one of my little girls can do that. And I didn't get it because I was Jeannie. It could have been any one of the kids. It was Andy, Gary, Stevie, Margaret, Tony, but it was me. And I did the job. And I just couldn't believe I was getting paid to do something that we did all the time as kids. It was just the way we did it. we rode horses, and my father used to take us to Hudkins Ranch and teach us how to hook up. We weren't allowed to drive a team or drive a 4-up unless we knew how to hook a team up or hook a 4-up up. There was none of this just get up and drive. You had to know how to do it. And so as a kid, you just do what your daddy told you to do. You know, and then there were the days my dad stayed a little longer, and we used to go out and play with the rats in the barn. Move the
Cats.
Yeah, Daddy was in having a little cocktail, maybe or two, maybe. Everybody that knows my dad knows my wild and crazy father, who he was everything. Great stunt man, great man.
Absolutely.
Anybody that knew him, and I don't know that everybody in this room knew him, but I know you guys knew my dad really well. Bobby knew my dad. I know Roy really knew my dad. You probably
I saw
have
her
stories about my
dad
dad.
jump a horse over a wagon horse called Brackett.
Oh yes, I remember Brackett.
Well, your dad and Brackett got along great, but imagine jumping a horse over a fire, and horses don't like fire. But her dad was something else.
Jeannie, what year was it that you rode that horse down?
Just gonna ask that.
I was 9 years old, so
I
I'm
was wrong. I said you started at 10.
well,
That's good.
close.
They like-
I turned 75 last Wednesday.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. But I'm not 75, I'm 73. I decided this year we're all going backwards.
What year was it you rode the horse down the hill? Yeah. What year?
Let's see, I was born in 1941.
Careful.
It was probably 1950.
1950.
And then Stephanie used to double. My sister did all the doubling for the Fury TV series, and what were those shows that? Did you ever work on Fury or?
Oh, yeah.
What was the other one? She doubled all the little boys. My sister Stephanie.
Oh, God, I forget. You're going back a long ways now.
Yeah, my friend Flicka.
Yeah, Flicka.
And she quit doubling little boys when they asked her to take her T-shirt off, and we knew they were growing. She said no.
You know, I'm going to interrupt just for a second because it's a pleasure to interrupt, and that being that, and I need to talk about Jeannie as we will throughout the afternoon, is that she comes from a family of legends, the Eppers family. My God, her brother Tony Eppers, Andy Eppers, Gary Eppers. I mean, they are history, and they just. You know, there's only a couple of families like that. John, who I knew very well, obviously, we're going back to. I know this family so well because they were such a part of my life. And it's just a pleasure to have her here because she is truly a living legend of the Eppers family. And we could talk about the things that Jeannie's done. If you've ever watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, for example, the Romancing the Stone, sliding down the mud and all that stuff. I mean, the lady broke a lot of boundaries that happened. You know, that we learned to live with over the years. That this is legend right here, pal.
If my body could talk. and yet I'm still working.
Yeah, and she's opened a lot of doors besides that. as
You
well, of
know,
course.
I do attribute a lot of my ability to still work and be strong and be sharp-minded to my walking with Christ, that I'm a born-again Christian and I love the Lord, and the Lord has given me, He keeps renewing me and renewing me, because I keep thinking, God, I'm
Quit
getting
renewing
old.
so much.
But I still work, and I want to work. I don't want to do stupid things. Well, what happens when you go to work, as you all know, and especially as we get older, you're known to be a hard-knock stunt person. So when this person calls and says, oh, I just got a little something for you to do, well, that little something for you to do turns out to be a big something for you to do. And I'm not going to say no. The director's going to say, oh, wow, could you do that again? I get around the corner and say, Lord, what do you think, you know? But I do attribute all of my success and my well-being and my being in good health and sharp-minded to the Lord and to my father, and maybe to Hutkins Brothers for teaching me how to stay on top of those rigs.
I always loved the one when they said, one more for safety.
One more for
Safety.
Who's not my safety? Didn't you just love that? You nail it the first one.
Just so you all know, when he was referring to safety, they were talking about for the film, not for the people.
How many times have you, Bobby, had to do one more time? And you know you nailed it. You know you got it.
Can't remember. You hate to say no, but every girl I know says no.
Only Bobby. Only Bobby.
And with that lead in, Bobby, what got you first into stunts? What was it that you saw?
Oh, well, I was born in Santa Monica and raised over in Culver City, Palms area, being in the 4th grade with Robert Blake. But I started getting into acrobatics at Santa Monica, the original Muscle Beach, when I was 11. And then when I was just turning 15, well, then some acrobats from the beach needed somebody, and they come through the circus, and they needed somebody in the acrobatic act. So I ran away from home and joined the circus with the acrobatic act, learned that, came back, and I was still 15, did my first film. I remember it was Elizabeth Taylor, I can't remember. But we were both 15. I was a week and a half older than her. But then once in a while we do films, but traveling with the circus all the time and learning all the acts. And that's why I was able to teach a show for many years called Circus of the Stars, where I taught all the aerial and acrobatic acts. But then I'd be traveling with the circus in summer, come back and do stunt work and everything like that. And one thing that just sort of ran in my mind, in 1949, we did our acrobatic act at the Orpheum Theater in Los Angeles. They were trying to bring back vaudeville. And I still remember the vaudeville people saying when they wanted to curse someone in vaudeville, they used to say, "May all your children be acrobats." I never figured why, but it's been a blessing for me. I loved it. But then it just, the variety of show business has just been going on from more and more, and I'm not getting so much work anymore now. They say, well, if it's a dangerous stunt, get Bob Yerkes, he's dispensable. But I don't. But we were. I was mentored by the world's greatest stuntman. He specialized in high work, and Jeannie was too, same one. And his name is Jesus Christ. He stood in for everybody up on the cross. And
Amen.
and we're accused of cheating on our stunts, and we both confessed it was right. We'd always pray first.
Always pray
Yeah.
first.
It's worked so far.
Yep.
Yes.
It works for you. Why fix it if it ain't broke?
No, you
But
get
my somersaults are getting lower and lower now. So.
somersaults.
Yeah, there you go. But it's been a real interesting business, and it's in stunt work. It's not glorifying yourself, but helping the actor to look good.
Sure.
So we don't have to fight those egos. That's why we're humble and proud of it.
I guess.
Yeah.
I got humble. I got humbled because I had 5 brothers and sisters who beat the living bejesus out of me. That's my job. No, that's my job. You know, when you're in a big family and you're all the same, pretty much in the girls' size-wise and talent-wise, you just have to make sure you were the one that got picked. It's my dad didn't let us do much of that nonsense. He didn't like that nonsense of the ego thing, the whole big ego thing.
Yeah.
Who was ever best for the job? I mean, sometimes it was hard when it came to riding and jumping horse because we were all pretty good. It was just which he felt was better for the job, because sometimes my dad would be the one that did the picking. And he's the one that taught us. See, we didn't get saddles when we learned how to ride. My dad put us on bareback, and when we conquered riding bareback, and then he'd give us a flat saddle, which is an English saddle like you see at the thoroughbred races. And if you could conquer that, then you could get a bareback, a Western saddle, because now you have your balance. You know how to ride. You know how to ride from the inside and not, flapping around out there. Not so much for what you look like in front of the camera, but for your safety. Because if you know where your center is, just like I know where my center is in Christ, I know where my center is in my body. It's my God, my gut feeling. And it's carried me through some things. Whew. I've gotten up off of a few things thinking, what? You know, we've all done that. Walked away from things we shouldn't have walked away from. Every one of us have. And yet, we'll do it again.
Yeah. Talking about walking away, I keep thinking I've broken my legs 3 times. First time was in France, and the name of the movie was Breakout with Charles Bronson.
Jesus likes me better than you. I didn't get problems.
Yeah. And this the first time I broke my leg, guys wishing me luck on the stunt. He says, break a leg. I broke them both. Second time was on Roger Rabbit, and the last time was a Tom Selleck movie called Her Alibi. But I'm back running. I run 3 or 4 miles now, so.
Jeannie, would you like to talk about the door with 1941?
Oh, God. Oh, I forgot all about that. See? Well, no, that's fine because, you know, they run together after a while. Well, I don't know. I guess most of you have seen the movie 1941, the one that Spielberg did. There was a sequence where, was it the mom and dad had a cannon out there, and they were going to blow the house up. No, the father was going to blow the Japs out of the wall. Excuse me if there's anybody of that descent. I don't mean it, but that's the way they spoke in those days. I apologize. But that's what they called them, Japs. And that's what he was out there to do. And the first time that we did it, I mean, I checked the equipment, checked the tank, checked big old cables on it like that. First time, they said the minute you hear this, jump. Well, it didn't do anything. You know, it held it. It didn't. Well, about the 4th or 5th time, the thing came right on through. Once again, there he was. My Lord picked me up, moved me out of the way, and it just amazes me that sometimes it amazes me that he cares so much about me, and that I can still be here.
Bobby, I trained in your backyard in 1970 when I was working as an extra, trying to become a stuntman, leaping off your platforms into the airbags and so on and so forth. That we didn't have airbags then; it was all boxes and pads. So airbags weren't even invented then. And that was in 1970. And then 3 weeks ago, I had my grandson training in your backyard. That you still allow people to train for free. Use your equipment. All they have to do is take it out and put it back. What makes you be so generous? You open your back door. If anybody needs a toilet, help themselves. Why? All these years.
Because I'm greedy. I'm laying up treasures in heaven, so when I get up there, I can throw gold coins all over myself.
Thank you.
And I don't want to lose my amateur standing. But it's, like the Bible says, it's more blessed to give than receive. And I get a blessing out of it.
Yep.
I mean, just like today, you guys are giving us your history, which I really do. I really do appreciate this because I think the stunt community needs to hear these stories, and I want your stories to be shared minimally with that, if not even.
We had a lot of fun.
Oh, you're paying us, aren't you?
Our check is in the mail. We're building our treasures in heaven.
So to move along, I want to start with a second question, which I know there's lots of stories and lots of stunts, but I'm curious to know, starting again with Bobby, what would you say was your most favorite stunt you've performed in your life?
The most dangerous actually was an accident. I was working on Abbott and Costello Meet the Keystone Cops in an old 2-winger airplane, and we went into this power dive over a hill to get a little more speed, and lo and behold, there was a power line there, so we went full tilt into this power line. And I was trapped in the wreckage, soaked in gasoline from the wing tank overhead, and they landed a helicopter, managed to get me out and wash me off with a fire hose at the airport. So I'd say that was the most dangerous one I ever did.
Not planned.
But like I said, that was an accident. But the The most difficult stunt I ever did was on a Western. I had to ride a horse bareback, doing a chase, leading 3 head of horses. And during the chase, the idea was I tired out the actor, or A.C. Hudkins. The idea was I would tire his horse out by me riding one horse and transferring to these other horses, going full tilt. And luckily, I got it done. This was in Mexico, and I was using local horses. Luckily, I had my own horse there, which was a thoroughbred who thought he was in the gate at Santa Anita whenever I got on him. But he dragged the other 3 horses along with him, or the other 2 horses. I would either ride him or transfer to him. But during the chase, I managed to transfer to all the horses, and I got the shot. But I missed a few times, and they ran over me a few times. So at the end of the day, I was pretty beat up. But especially at altitude in Durango, Mexico, you run out of air real fast. But anyhow, I was able to get all the horses transferred to all of them. It was by far the most difficult thing I've ever done, because these horses were not trained. They were local horses, except for my own falling horse, which is a big thoroughbred, 16 3 hands high. I'm still, to this day, surprised I got it done, because it was incredibly difficult. Just riding a horse bareback and dragging horses along and jumping to the back and over to the next. That was by far the most difficult thing I've ever done. And I'm sure if you saw stills or the actual film of it, you wouldn't think it was that difficult, but it really was. Some stunts don't look that difficult on film, and some look more difficult than they are.
Bobby, it's amazing what 40 years and 30 pounds will do for you.
Yeah, I was skinny then.
In the circus, I did a lot of horse work, but I was no good sitting on a horse. I was good standing on a horse when we do somersaults, called Rosenbach act. Yeah.
Yeah, they take a lot of training. Unfortunately, my training was all in one day and doing it. So it was a long day. And we did it on the way to the airport. The shooting was over, and the crew was on the camera car, and I was going alongside the road over hill and dale. And it was the happiest day of my life when I got it done. And I think for any stuntman, the best you ever feel is when you get the day's work done. Get it completed.
Yeah.
Because that's the bottom line, is getting the shot. I quit doing stunts when I was 87. I did stair fall when I was 84, did a couple of them, didn't get hurt. And at 87, I said, well, that's it, no more stunts. And I haven't done one since, and I'm glad of it. It's nice to have that in the background, and not knowing you're going to have to do another stunt next week. It's kind of nice to be done with it. Although I enjoy doing it, I really did. You have to like it, or you won't do it.
Absolutely. So we'll stay on that course then, because actually that was my next question. What was your most difficult stunt you performed? So we'll finish with that and we'll jump back to favorite. So, Roy,
Oh, hey.
how about yourself?
I knew you were going to get to me. He had a
Yes.
5-minute time limit. For me, I like to tell the stories about the funny things that happen, because throughout your life you're going to do some things that are tougher than others, and every day you do to go to be a stuntman. Believe me, it's not a stunt. Sometimes it's just it's kind of fun, and there are times when you put your butt on the line, and that's just part of being a professional. But I think I like to tell a couple of fast stories about different things. I once got a call from Paterni, who was doing the Untouchables, and he said, Roy, which is very common, by the way, in those days, he said, would you go down tomorrow and double Elliot Ness and do a little fight? This is something I I thought, quite well in those days. And he said, what am I doing? He said, well, meet the director in the morning and walk through the stands at Hollywood Park and do this little fight. I said, hey, that's a compliment, by the way, from attorney. So I went down there and I'm walking through the stands. There's a little chase between me and the other guy and stuff like that. And he's walking slowly towards the edge of the Hollywood Park. And he's looking over the edge. It's about, I'd say maybe 15, 16 feet to the ground. And he said during the process of this explanation, he said the guy will jump over the, and he said, what do you think about that? I said, and then do the fight in the tunnel by the barn. I said, shit, that's really good. Who's doing it? Now, he looked at me and said, you. Well, everybody here knows me. I don't really like height, right? So I thought, and of course now you're down there covering for somebody and you think, you know, I'm agreeing with you, that's great. So I thought to myself, and this is where the horses come out underneath the Hollywood Park, if you've ever been there. There's shavings on the ground and they come out and do the parade lap. So I thought to myself, there's got to be a way old Clark can do this. So I went downstairs and got a couple of honchos. They raked sawdust about 7 feet high under that there. And old Roy, that 18 feet became about 9. It was just, you know, soothing. And those are kind of fun stories I did. I have one more fast story and then I'll go on because he's sitting in the audience. I go back to work for Conrad Palmisano and Bruce Barber, who were doing a show called Spencer for Hire. And I had gone back on several occasions to do a little car work, a little fights and stuff like that. So we're there on a given story. And Connie comes to me one day and he said, Roy, what are you doing next week? I said, well, nothing really, because you go back for one segment at a time. And he said, I know you don't like heights, but he said, I got this little fight with Bob, the actor, on this bridge called the Weeks Bridge, and he said, it's 8 or 9 feet to the water. And he said, I said, shit, that's right down old Clark's alley, right? 8 or 9 feet. So anyway, I'm there during the weekend. So finally on a given day, Connie comes to me and said, you know, you ought to go down with Bruce Barber and look at the bridge in case there's something you want to figure out. Good idea. So with that, we're working and I'm seeing these bridges where people walk over, cars ride, bicycles go over. We come to a bridge, god damn, that some bitch about 30 feet tall, man. And they stop. And Bruce looked at me and he said, you know, Roy, I don't remember it being quite this high. And I thought to myself, had I known this in California, well, Clark wouldn't have been in Chicago or whatever. So anyway, with that in mind, we go out there and we do and you do. You know, they give me what they called back there, it snowed, it was 40 below zero, everything was about it was raining. And they got, Bruce and Connie got me a suit that, called a dry suit, I guess, which takes you in water beyond your imagination. And, you know, we did it, it worked out. Was it something I wanted to do? No, but I hit the, they tell me, I hit the water, I'm in the safety boat and gone. They said, Jesus Christ, what was that? You know, those are a couple of little funny stories that I enjoy talking about because, you know, we do stunts on a daily basis, and yes, sometimes we do hang it out there, and you certainly can get hurt. But a lot of times they're not, and they're done in a very professional way so that you can do them. We're not Evel Knievel. We give him a lot of credit for what he does. We would never do that. I think when you say professional stuntman, you're looking at somebody that wants to do in the business for a long time. Sure. If it's your last hurrah, you better get somebody else. You know what I mean? I guess if I got one more story, then I'll quit talking.
Tell me the canal story.
I'm going to tell you about a plane. I don't like heights, right? So we're doing Sunset. I'm Dublin Garner, as you well know, for all these years. And so they said, Roy, you're going to go out to Indian Dunes, which everybody knows. And he said, going to ride in an airplane, Dublin Tom Mix, or what I was doing. I said, shit, old Clark can do that. So anyway, I get out and I get into Indian Dunes. And little did I know they had a helicopter above the given plane. And at a given time, this plane goes into a dive and dives over a bunch of cattle and horses down there. But in the process of the dive, this sumbitch catches a fire. I mean a fire. And I think my life has just gone down. I'm dead. You know, there's just an open cockpit. There's a guy behind me. I'm in front. And we are diving down towards these horses. And the whole front of the plane, which has been designed, but I don't know that. And Garner, they tell me a couple of weeks before, they said to the entire crew and cast, do not tell Roy what he's doing tomorrow. Well, anyway, You know, it was all planned and stuff like that. And of course, just before we got to the ground, we pulled out over the cattle and stuff like that. But I'll always remember that. And Garner the next day said, "Well, how'd you do, Roy?" I think I wet my pants. And I really thought, honest to God, if you've ever thought about you're going to meet your maker, this is it. Things were going wrong. I don't know what they've done. I have no idea this is all controlled. The smoke and the fire is coming on both sides of me, and I'm thinking, God damn, Shirley will never know what happened to me. And, so they're funny things that happen that I enjoy talking about because we have these wonderful, this is a career that everybody would give their life for. You know what I mean? It really is. We have touched so many lives in our career.
Absolutely.
And believe it or not, lives have touched us. So I'm a guy that's been in 50 years. I'm proud of it, and hey, I enjoy talking.
Pass that on to you, Jeannie. Your favorite stunt and/or most difficult.
Oh, that's hard to divide up.
You can have a couple.
Well,
Romancing the snow and sliding down that hill, for Christ's sakes, is pretty
well,
incredible.
that was when I got the script for that. When Leonard sent me the script, it read to be the easiest thing in the whole darn movie because there was the jump off the
Waterfall.
off the waterfall. There was all these really, really hairy stuff, but the roll down the hill seemed no big deal. So we get there, and he drives me out to the location. We pull up beside this mountain, and as I'm looking up, I'm going, what? That's the mountain we're sliding down. And it's 250 feet long. And they're going to go up there, and they're gonna dig a trench in there. And they're going to put me in, dump water on me, and I'm going to either sit up there like an idiot with the water pointing around me, or I'm going to let go and go, yo, and go down the thing. It was a tough gag, but everybody thinks it was fun. Looks like the most fun thing I ever did in my life. Well, it was up until about 2.5 weeks, and then it got really, really old and boring. And I got, you can get like tunnel vision, or where you get to the point where you don't even know you're in trouble. I don't know what that word is, but Leonard looked at me one day. He said, "We're going to do this one more time." And he looked at me and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." And then he said, "No, we're not. We're going to wrap. You're done for the day." Because the lights were on, but nobody was home. But I wanted to do a good job. I was the only girl there. And I just thought all the way home, because I'm a big crybaby anyway. I cried all the way home, thought I did the worst job in the world. I'm in one of those rock and roll vans in Mexico getting to the hotel. And when I got to the hotel, I had 24 red roses. And it said, "To my champion, Jeannie Epper from Terry." So we underestimate how much we give, not just to people, but to the film that we're making. And each thing that I do is like when I did Terms of Endearment with Jack Nicholson, and I got to ride on top of that car with Jack, Wild Man Jack, and I'm the one that got to get spit in the water, and that was fun. Except I had to keep checking Jack, making sure that he was not too crazy, but everybody wanted to do what I was doing, to be in that car with Jack Nicholson, because Alan Gibbs set it up, and I knew that Alan set it up, I was going to be safe, and it was going to work good, and it did. So those are kind of my two favorite things that I've done. I've got a million things, like every Wonder Woman thing was fun. I did a lot of Bionic Woman stuff where they didn't see my boobs because she didn't have them and I did, and that's just how it was, And they started shooting at 80 frames and they couldn't see them bouncing around. So, and I went on an interview to do Wonder Woman, and I put on a bathing suit, went with all the other girls, but I didn't look like Linda Carter in the face. So they picked a girl that looked like Linda Carter in the face. And after 2 episodes later, they called me and asked me what I was doing. because she just didn't have the agility to jump and twist and kick. You know, it just, and what I did is, my dad told me to do this. He said, go out and watch. Go out and watch what she does. Watch how she runs. You become her. And I went out and I watched how, when she was Diana, how she would run, get behind a tree and spin and become Wonder Woman. And that's how I really think I nailed the job, by becoming her, and not, and you know, nobody wants to say Jeannie Epper. They want to say Wonder Woman. Every job was good. All the jobs I did with my family. Judge Roy Bean, Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean, especially when Paul Newman kept me back and kissed me on the lips.
I want to tell an Epper story, because there again I go back with the family so terribly long ago, and so we're both about 19 or 20 years old. We have known each other all our lives.
You're older than me.
Well, she's now trying to make me older. But she come on the show. We're doing the pilot of Rockford Files, and we're out at Vasquez Rocks doing the pilot of Rockford Files. She's doubling at Merritt Hartley, and
Lindsay. Lindsay Wagner.
That's what I said, Lindsay Wagner, right? And anyway, she's got a good memory. Got a good memory, even though she walks a little different.
Yes, I do.
So anyway, with that, we're doing this chase, and there's the honey wagons or stuff are far away from where the chase is now. And she said, Roy, and we're cycling through the rocks now in the Firebird. I got to go to the bathroom. I said, you're in tough luck. She said, take me to the honey wagon. The honey wagon's along. I said, I'm going to take you to the first bush.
And they did. They did.
Hey, man, we skidded up to a bush. She ran out to the bush. She ran back from the bush. She got in the car. She said, okay, right, let's go.
Right on we went.
I mean, you know, these are funny stories that go back because our relationships are so long.
And I was young and I was embarrassed, you know.
She was young and embarrassed, and I was young and didn't make much difference. You know? Anyway, these are stories because everybody here, at least us, the four of us, and so many in the audience, Tony Santero, who I've worked for 34, Connie, I mean, people in the audience that, you know, you've been such a part of my life, obviously, and hopefully I've been part of yours. But the four of us, I mean, we're raised together, basically. This is the Stunt Association and Stunt community. Men, women, black, white, I don't give a shit what you are. We're a family, and that's what it's all about.
Well, yeah. Push comes to shove, it's you and the camera and doing the gag. You know, you can talk it and talk it and talk it to death, but when you're standing on the edge of that building and looking down, that's you and hoping you hit the airbag. So.
I wanted to say that it takes a unique ability to be a stunt person. You can be the greatest athlete in the world, and I've seen some pretty good athletes come out to do stunts, and after a couple of stunts, it's goodbye. They don't want to do any more stunts, and they're great athletes. But it's a unique ability that stunt people have to do the many different kinds of stunts we do. And we're not the greatest at any one thing, but we do know how to do enough stuff that we can make a living at it. And a lot of good athletes, right, cannot handle the stunt business. For instance, I don't know what stunt people are doing now, but I once did a high fall off of an oil derrick, 60 feet high. I went into an 8 by 12 cardboard box catcher, stacked 3 high, about this high.
I was there.
Wow.
The movie.
And I just wonder if guys today would do that high, fall that high into that small boxes. I'm sure today they'd use an airbag. But back then, it was, you were challenged quite a bit.
We didn't know any better.
Yeah, and also another stunt I forgot that I did. I jumped a car 156 feet through the air on convoy. And I walked away from that walking funny. I got a concussion, separated my collar from my sternum. And And I walked funny, but I was all right. I stayed on the show and did some other stuff. But anyway, stunt people have a strange ability to make a living at it, and I think all of you that are doing stunts should be proud, because it's not everybody that can do it.
And live this long.
Doing stunts hurts, am I correct?
Yes, you are
Big
correct.
time.
That's one of the things my husband keeps telling me. Don't you think it's time to quit? Because he hears me when I get home. You know, no, I don't say anything to any of you guys, but you know, all of a sudden now the bruises are swelling up and this is happening, and I've got the ice bag on this and the ice bag on that, and I don't say anything because you know he knows he's not going to tell me not to do it. Not going to do him any good because I'm going to do it.
You're gonna do it.
I'm going to do it. I rethink things now. I question. I want to know who I'm working for, and if I'm really concerned, and if it's anywhere where I can go see it, I'd like to go look at it. Because I want to get up again. When I was a kid, I didn't care. I mean, I didn't always wanted to get up again, but when I was a kid, I didn't care. I just wanted to go hurry up and get to the fun part of the end of the day.
You know, what I was going to say is that, and I think, you know, from the stunt community standpoint, and if you've been around athletes in general, I've been around fighters all my life, from the boxing ring, for example, and I remember being around those people because of the Hudgens relationship, and the fighter would say, you know what, that's my last fight. He knew. I think with the stunt people, you and I've been with, and we all have been there, where I've been with people in the general, and a guy who just done a saddle fall, for example. He's not 25 years old anymore. And he's gotten up and he'll say, Roy boy? I said, yeah. He said, you just saw my last saddle fall. Mm-hmm. You kind of know, I know. I'm at that stage in my life. I'm retired, and I've been retired for some time. But there came a time when what happens is that you maybe want to do some of the things you did yesterday, but in doing so, you put other people in jeopardy, because you're not the same guy you were yesterday. You don't have that taming you had yesterday. And I worked for Connie an awful lot. In other words, time for you to come out of the tunnel, Roy. If you don't come out when you're supposed to, just that split second, you put other people in jeopardy. So I think when you step back, and those of us have stepped back, Jeannie stepped back, Bobby, myself, you know, you know, and you look back and then say, you know what, I've stepped back, but God, the memories I've got are they're priceless. And I can share them with other people in our organization. I personally, because of my age, have these great names of yesterday. The Yakima Canucks, who half the people don't know I'm talking about. The Cliff Lions, the Davy Sharps, the Urgoynes. I mean, these are people that built the house that I moved into, theoretically. And Connie and everybody here has, you know, these people have come up. He's one of our biggest second-year directors. As people that have been part of your family, and you'd like to think, you know, like I said, I'm proud of the fact that I got to do, hypothetically, Rockford Files, your work for Spielberg, those people that you work for, not bragging, it's just part of your career. And maybe during the way, because along the way, for me, and I think everybody, God, we had a lot of help. Somebody showed me how to do this, somebody showed me how to do it, and hopefully along the way, you were able to give back. And that's kind of what it's all about. Bobby gives back, Jeannie gives back, Connie, everybody here that's in this. That time comes and you say, hey, and I know now when we go, and we all do, the thing to the Taurus Awards, for example, I have people coming up to me, and I'm sure Connie does, Bobby does, Jeannie, everybody does, say, hey, Roy, you gave me my first job. And you think, wow, God, that's kind of that a boy. And it's kind of saying, hey,
Thank you.
I did, you know, I did something. I don't know why I said that, but it sounded good.
So I'm going to go on to Bobby now, and also would love to hear what your favorite out of everything you've done, stunt, and possibly your most difficult as well.
Probably where a bit difficult were on the Statue of Liberty, in the movie Remo Williams, and I doubled Fred Ward. And it was on the statue, and I'm whipping around up there at the top. It's when in '85, they were putting scaffolding around, refurbishing it.
Yep.
And so we shot on there, and I had to whip around and everything in one hand and everything, and I had to do one fall down, thereby carrying the camera, and that was a little
Wow.
rough.
Yeah.
It then it was nice. I won Best Highwork Award for it, but then doubling Della Reese, Touched by an Angel, getting shot out of the cannon. That was first time of getting shot out of the cannon was scary. But afterwards,
Yeah.
it was a blast. Then I did it a lot more after that, and I get a bang out of it every time I do it. It's really going. But the best one I did, paid the best, I thought, was Back to the Future. I doubled Christopher Lloyd up on the clock, sliding
Oh,
to
wow,
the ground. So they used that same shot, Back to the Future 2 and Back to the Future 3. So I got paid without having to work on it. So, and it still gets residuals. So, but then in different, they shoot a lot of films in my backyard, commercials and different things. The biggest thing they ever shot was Return of the Jedi for George Lucas. And that was, it's been an exciting life, everything. And I've been hurt so many times, though, people are accusing me of enjoying pain. And I admit it, yeah, I do. But it's been a very interesting life, and boy, nothing to complain about. It's been great. You want to learn to live by faith? Get in show business.
You've got low self-esteem. You don't want to get in the movie business. Because, you know, we can all be on the same interview. I'll just as be as good as the next one, and they're only going to pick one.
Okay. You know me, I love talking, and these are things that we talk about ourselves. And when you get an opportunity to kind of shine, you know, you think you've earned it, really. So anyway, Stephen Cannell, who did the Rockford Files, he not only wrote it. Now, everybody there in the Rockford wanted to direct their own particular thing. It was just part of the thing. I mean, it's just, you know, everybody did. So now he wrote this wonderful story, and he also is going to direct it, and he has ideas that nobody else has had. And so he's going to have me have this car turnover in the back lot at a place that's the most difficult in the world, really, and a place, honestly, that I don't know how to do. So who do I call but the great name Kerry Lofton and Bob Harris. Bob Harris, one of the greatest car guys in the business. Kerry Lofton is a legend beyond. And I called Kerry, I said, Kerry, I want you to look at this area here, because I said, I'm unfamiliar. He doesn't want to see a ramp, he doesn't want a pipe ramp, all the things he doesn't want to see. So anyway, with that in mind, Kerry comes over and we go to the position. It's about, well, for make it dramatic, about 100 feet at an angle like that. Going to turn over on the top of the road all the way down. But there's no ramp, no nothing. I'm thinking, so anyway, what Kerry suggested, because he had done it as they did in the olden days, he put 40 2x12 planks on the hill and then put steel spikes in those things and then jumped down about 10 feet and put another 40 feet across spikes, and then went down another 10 feet. Now he's got 3 of these bars on this hill that's like that. And I'm asking, he said, Roy, when it comes down sideways, believe me, when it hits that first ramp, it is going to do its thing. Oh, shit, that sounds pretty dramatic. And he said, if it didn't, believe me, those other 2 will. Now, in those days, they had what they call a safety meeting. So now the whole crew gets in. So, for example, I say, Connie, you go to the car, to the driver. Don't anybody else go. That's his day. And you had this whole thing. Called the hospital, called the first aid, got an ambulance on the set, and everybody from the tower comes out to see this. And so we're standing there, and Stephen Cannell looks at me, he said, Roy, are you ready? And I said, yes, I am. Well, I mean, this is a big day for me, right? So he said, so I called the top of the hill, Bobby, you ready? And he said, got 2 dummies. In those days, you didn't put guys in if you didn't have to. They wanted to save money. You ready, Bobby? He said, yeah. And I said, in the meantime, Stephen Cannell, big guy, he said, Roy, it's all yours. Well, goddamn. You ready, Bob? Yep. All right. Roll the camera. Roll camera 1. Roll camera 2. I could hear him shifting the goddamn cars, and I thought, boy, is this going to be something? And we're down at the bottom, because this is where it's going to happen. So here he comes, I'm watching on the top of the hill, and he slides down and slides over this way. He misses that first plank. He misses the second plank. He misses the third plank, and he slides down. Car hasn't turned over yet. Slides all the way down to the dump with a whole bunch of dust, and it's dust all over the place. And I'm standing to Stephen Candle about as close as I am to Jeannie Epper's. He said, Roy? I said, yes, sir. Is that it? So now I had seen all these things done in slow motion, and I have a Jerry Summers and myself, and we're working on another Rockford foul. And they're doing the chase on the Riviera golf course. Unreal. And so with that in mind, gonna crash through this big gate and all that stuff. And I thought, this is the place to use slow motion. Did I know a lot about slow motion? No. But I thought I did. So we cranked the camera at 120 some frames like that. So anyway, here he comes, and I got the camera's going to do slow motion, going to hit the wood. I visualized when he hit the wood that the wood would go through the air like that. Just be beautiful. I mean, you know, I really thought it'd be dramatic. So now we're in, as they were in those days, I'm in the production room, in the camera room. Stephen Candle, Jim Garner, the whole crew is standing there. I said, Roy, yeah, let's see what it is. He said, roll the camera. Now I know this is going to be dramatic. Now in the distance, there's a car. It seems like it's moving, but it's, God damn it, and it's coming right straight towards this fence. And so now, as I'm talking like this, I noticed everybody saying, by the way, what'd you do for dinner last night? It took forever for that son of a gun to finally come. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it must have taken 5 minutes for the car to get to the fence. And then when it hit the fence, the wood went. Again. Stephen said, Roy? I said, yes, sir. Is that what you had in mind? I mean, you know, these are things that I can tell about myself. I made a lot of mistakes, honestly, and we always do. But over the period of 8 years, I did learn, and hopefully, you know, did some things that I thought were kind of clever. Rockford was not Dukes of Hazzard. It was a thing that you kind of added a little humor to all this stuff. It fit for us, and you know, it was a fun show to do, and we did a couple nice little things from time to time, and you know, just one more story. I had a semi-truck and trailer to trip over, a big, and so who do I call on the set? Why not? The best in the business, Carrie Lofton. Carrie's 74 years old, gray hair, walks with a little hitch in his get-along, and we're down on where we're going to do the turnover, and here comes this old man. Carrie didn't walk real good then anyway, and everybody said, who's that guy? I said, that's Carrie Lofton. What's he going to do? I said, he's going to turn over the truck. He's what? I said, he's going to turn over the semi-truck and trailer on this hill. God damn, isn't he just a little long in the tooth? Well, anyway, long story short, get up there, roll the camera, they do the shot, semi-truck and trailer goes over, and they say, God damn, boy, that was really something. I mean, all of a sudden, it was just amazing that the great names, even at that latter part of their lives, were doing what they did and did well, and it was a pleasure. But, you know, we all, Connie, Tony, Bobby, Gene, everybody here who's been in the business as long as I have, or just been in the business, have these incredible stories that are fun to tell, to share with people, to say, hey, along with doing what you do for a living and getting paid as well as we do from time to time, there's some wonderful times in it together. There really are, and it's just memories that I think really, speaking for myself, memories are kind of keeps you going when you're my age. You kind of remember those great names and the people that you've worked with, because we've lost so many. You know what I mean? And so to enjoy those of us that are here and the camaraderie we spent together. I spent time with everybody here that I'm talking about they've been part of my life, and I've been part of theirs. And hey,
Yep.
it's been a hell of a journey. Thank you.
As Terry Leonard would say, all you got is memories and 8 by 10s. Memories and 8 by 10s.
I have a very short story. Sure.
I think he's saying that for my benefit.
I'm ready to do a high fall. Everything's all set, and the ambulance drives by. And the 2 guys get out of the ambulance, and they're leaning against like they're waiting for me. So I called the assistant director over, and he came around the back and got up to the top of this building, and he said, "What do you want?" I said, "Tell those guys to get lost." So the assistant went back, they took the ambulance out of sight. I said, "Now I'll go." So if that ever happens to you and the ambulance is waiting for you, tell them to get lost.
I like that. I like that. I got one
Can I
last.
interject something here with Royden? Because one of the most amazing times in my career that we shared together on the Johnny Carson Show live is that Hal Needham, who was the head of Stunts Unlimited, right, called me and Royden to replace him to do a live show with Dom DeLuise on The Tonight Show. And of all the guys in Stunts Unlimited, Hal Needham called us to
Pretty
go
special.
represent
Wow.
him on The Tonight Show. And what, I thought it was a joke on the phone. I thought somebody was kidding. But Royden, we went and we did it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The live
yeah,
thing with Dom DeLuise and Johnny Carson. We
Yeah.
just staged a fight routine on the thing and, right?
Isn't that, and that's like Connie said, and that's part of your Johnny Carson, obviously a big name, and he's no longer there. But we had that moment, we had that part of our life to look back on the things that we all, lives that we touch and deal with, that you take for granted because it was just something we did and do enjoyable. But now we look back at it as we're talking now to think, hey, how lucky we were. You just say you work with the President of the United States. You got to be kidding me. You work with the Governor of the United States. The people that you come in contact, that you take for granted at the moment because you're doing what you're taught to do. You're getting paid for what you're doing, and you're thinking, it's just another day's work. You got a wife, you got children, you got a friend. But it's when you get to be maybe this age that you look back and you say, wow. Tony Santero, who's sitting here, we did Batman and Robin 30 years ago. It was the biggest joke in town. It was the Batman and Robin was the big. That's got to be the biggest flop that was ever made. It was also one of the
TV
biggest
shows.
hits that was ever made, and everybody in this business worked on Batman and Robin, and then the Green Hornet, and you thought, God. But they were special, and they were a part of it. They were part of so many of our lives. Everybody here, that was part of your lives. The Penguin, everybody went to the Penguin, the Joker, my God. I mean, all these people were just, they were special. I mean, they were just special. He was on it for 15, 20 years. Hubie Kearns, Victor Paul, bless their hearts. Those are the things that I enjoy talking about, that people really, you need to kind of share these memories with people because they don't have these memories. Our business had changed. When I got in, and a long time ago, obviously, as you well know, everything was a Western. There wasn't a car show on the air. I mean, things change and becomes part of your life. But, you know, like I said, those are my memories. I'm sharing them with you.
That leads to my very last quick question. Then I'd like to open up to the audience real quickly. What do you feel, or what have you seen change from the time you started in the business till today?
It's those Bobby Herron.
Tremendous changes in the business. The cars went from rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive. I remember when airbags came out, someone said, "Bob, you're going into an airbag." And I said, "What's an airbag?" Cardboard box is all I knew. And that's just a couple of the things. There's so many of the other things have changed over the years. Maybe somebody else can think of more changes.
Yes.
But I mean, when you go back to the earlier days, the Kerry Loftons and people like that, and Warner Brothers, they didn't use cages. There was no pipe ramps. There was no ramps to go. And theoretically, believe me, they would go in on stage and tip a car over by sliding it in sideways to a curb about that big and turn it over. Absolutely. Those things that became later on the pipe ramps, the Dukes of Hazzard, they did stuff. You know, probably the biggest car chase in this industry had ever seen was Bullitt. Without a doubt, Bullitt was the biggest thing. Nobody had ever seen things like that. They did Bullitt every day of the week on Dukes of Hazzard. You follow me? So technology brought us into that whole new area of what you could do safety-wise. I was there when Bobby did the fall that he was talking about. He neglected to tell you that they use 1x6 half-inch planks of wood, 8 feet long, and they put them on a sawhorse. They put them on a, and then they put the boxes in the sawhorse, and then Bobby come off this oil tank.
I don't recommend it.
But I mean, so, you know, so my life was there. I keep talking, but it's so easy because I was such a part of Dar Robinson's life. I was there when he broke the world's record. I was with Dar from, I investigated Dar's leaving us, for example, but I was such a close friend of Dar and his family and watched all those great high falls. I never did a high fall, as you well know. I just told you I didn't like high. But the distance, we used to go out and watch the greatest name in this business, Davy Sharp. He was going to do a 30-foot fall at Universal at the waterfall. We all went to see Davy Sharp do a 30-foot fall. I mean, hey, we have all now seen 100-foot falls without a doubt. I mean, and a lot of them worked at Bob Yerkes, practicing out there doing the things like that. So technology is around and equipment. Yeah. You know, years ago, and I know I'm talking, but just for a moment, but years ago when they would do a jerk off, and what I see a jerk off on a horse being with a wire, they'd put a harness on you and put a wire on a vest and take a steel spike and drive the steel spike in the ground. I was there. I did those and ride to the end of it. Am I telling you you came off? There is no doubt you're going to come off, right? And so with that in mind, technology brought in what they call a ratchet. It was a cylinder that had bungee cord on it. And so consequently, you would go out to the end of the bungee cord because it would work within a cylinder, and it made the ride out really so much easier. What it did was it hurt you on the way back. No, it did, because it didn't have the recoil. The recoil was, I'm telling you, the recoil was incredible. Then Knut, there again, the great name of Knut. They designed, when the ratchet went out, it had little hitches in the racket. So if you could just visualize this, it went click, 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 but it didn't go back. You follow me? Yeah. In that cylinder, it had the cylinder within the cylinder, and it allowed you to go way out like that, but there was no recoil. Yeah. It just, and there again, one more Yakima kind of story. They used to do a lot of jousting, King Arthur and the Knights, and I happened to be there when they did that. Two great cowboys, Leroy Johnson and Henry Wells, were going to do this jousting, and there was 2 telephone poles at the end of the jousting arena. So, what the hell is that? Yakima Knut is where the hookup was. So the lift was up, not down, and they could ride to the end of this thing with the goddamn hook wide open, and when they came to where the thing was, because the hookup was high, it looked dramatic. So there's a technology, and new youth, what they're doing today on the cars and stuff is incredible what they're doing. But it's a youth market that's brought in new technology, equipment has changed already. Go back to the saddle falls, you're still doing those for real. But and you know, it's just, and the equipment you'd go from a horse to a train, a horse to a stagecoach. Yeah, we still use steps just like we did years ago, but they're modernized a lot better. They're a lot different than they were. They're more stationary. They don't kind of give and take a little thing. So it allows you, and not only that, I think the stuntmen of today, I don't say they're better than yesterday, but they're athletes. Yakima Knut, he's a professional rodeo. I mean, those guys were athletes in themselves, and they invented a lot of things that we're using still today. You know, I watched the Lone Ranger ride silver and jump a train on the last Lone Ranger. I was out there when they did that. They had a big blue screen there, and they had a box, and the horse jumped about that far. And they thought, wow, he just jumped off the goddamn train when you saw it. Yeah. Technology. Yeah. Technology is just, which I know nothing about because I feel like I'm in a covered wagon days, but before we did, so that's all it is. It's just, and we're all here. I mean, you know, those that are still working are using that. I don't know how to use it.
A lot of things have changed and a lot of things haven't changed. I mean, your body's your body, and it's gonna gonna hit when it hits. I happen to have a son who's a rigger, who's like a pretty top rigger, and to talk to him to see the way they're going, or they have gone, with all the CGI and the technology, with with all that stuff. He did all the Mission Impossible 3, where they did the jump out of the big window in Dubai. He rigged that. He wasn't the stunt man, but it's thanks to Bob Yerkes that Richard became a rigger. Bob had him down there to teach him. You had him down there to help you with Circus of the Stars, Richard, and he took a liking to that kind of, intimate little work that they details.
Sure.
That's what it's about. And those are all life-saving things that give you the illusion that it's much bigger, but you know what? People still want to see us get crunched on the ground. They still want to see us get hit by a car. It's like the old Gladiator and Lion days. People have a thirst for blood, and it's sad, but maybe that's why they watch Quentin. Because all of his movies are bloodthirsty.
I'd like to add that when you're on location, you're apt to double anybody. I doubled Bruce Lee on location once. Thank God it wasn't martial arts stuff. And also Goldie Hawn. I doubled Goldie Hawn. So over the course of your career, you're apt to double anybody.
Back then, you wouldn't get turned in.
And I know Bob has a quick technology story as well.
Oh, well,
What have you brought in?
I brought two things into the business, which I'd used in the circus before, and I'd made it up and had them fix it, and we tested it and everything. One was the airbag.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple other people that claimed to it. They didn't. They never went into it until they went into mine. But so in the circus I did it, and then on Ringling Brothers way back, and then I brought it into stunt work. And another thing that I brought in on Wonder Woman, they were flying the doubles through the air on wires. And so then I started using a teeter-board. You hit one in and throw them through the air, but somebody in the shot hitting the board and everything, so that didn't work too good. So another piece of equipment I brought in was the Russian swing, which we did in the circus. And so I started using that on Wonder Woman and to throw them through the air, and that made it look more real.
He can send you straight out, or he can send you straight up. Or...
All right, well, I'm going to open it up to the floor. I know there's a few people that may have a few questions. So whoever would like to come up first, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
My name is Eve Miller, and I have a question for Jeannie Epper.
Yes.
I was wondering what it was like being one of the early stunt women, and also how you were treated, being a woman, because I know at that time it was mostly men that were doing stunts. So I was just wondering what some of your early experiences, were like as a stunt woman.
Well, mine were kind of unique because I came in with, 3 brothers and a dad who nobody really treated me bad. I was treated really well, and I'm almost like one of the guys. I never crossed those lines, so I stayed within the parameters of what my dad taught me. And being a girl, the only thing different was clothes, having to work around dresses. And in fact, in The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean, when I kissed Paul Newman, I had to run and jump and do a Cooper mount on the back of the horse. We're so stupid. Me, dummy me. Had a satin skirt on, and it was wet because they blew up the water tank that we dove behind. It got wet. Well, we forgot to slit it up the front. So I'm going 90 miles an hour, and I hit this horse. I go, bink, bink. I'm on the ground like this. Oh. But we get up, and I just slit it up and go do it again. But those were all learning things. We all had to. You would never have to do that because I already did it for you. It was something that should have just knocked me out. But I guess because of my brothers, I was taught to be tough. I don't think I got hit on not that I didn't get hit on, but as many times. In fact, I know that I never got a date in junior high school because my brother Tony Epper was, 6'7", and they said, "Who's your brother?" "Oh, we're not taking you out," you know. So I had a lot of that around me. I had a lot of protection.
Thank you.
Hi, Conrad Palmisano, Connie to most of you,
Yep.
right?
Hi,
Hi,
Connie.
guys. And I think today that so many stunt persons are specialists. They're martial artists or they're call guys. But in our day, and especially in your days, you had to be a little bit of everything, right? You had to ride a horse, you had to drive a car, you had to do the high fall, you had to do it all. If I was taking you on a location, I didn't want to take 5 guys to do one guy's shot.
Right.
So is that the way it was?
Absolutely.
Can I answer that, Connie? I think what happens, and he's saying the right thing, that the versatility of a stuntman today is so terribly important. But that wasn't always true. And I was in that era not being true. If you horseback, you did not do a high fall. If you horseback, God forbid, you must have walked to work because they didn't allow you to turn a car over or do much car work. That was the change in time when the Ronnie Rondells and people like that came in, and there was only one Davy Sharp that did a little bit of everything. I horsebacked. I was considered by my peers to be a good fight man, and I was never out of work. I was never out of work. That wouldn't prevail today because now, like Connie said, instead of taking, hey, Hal Needham took 20 guys on Little Big Man, but they all did something. They didn't do it all, you follow me? But it was pretty much a horsework. But today, you need to ride a motorcycle. You need to be able to feel comfortable at, say, a given 30 feet, possibly. Do a little tiny sword work. We did sword work yesterday, Debbie. We did what they call click-clacking. And click-clacking is in the background, click and a clacking. But the swordmen were up front doing what they did and did well. And we were not those people. We were on a different salary. They were on hypothetically. I started when stunts were $35. 35, extras were 12. It's, you know, I go back a long ways, not braggadocious. I mean, it's just part of history. But today, the more rounded you are, I mean, today a stuntman, for example, knows a little bit about camera. He knows a little bit about acting. He knows a little bit about everything because he's going to have an individual meeting, which Connie's had more than over in foreign countries, to come over and discuss kind of how they were going to want to do that because he has that knowledge. When he laid our rug, I can guarantee you, he knew how to lay a rug, but he had no idea what to do with a camera. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. He learned to do that and did it right.
It's just that when I came into the business, instead of a dressing room, you would have a big tarpaulin on the ground. And each guy would get a corner, and whoever's doubling the lead got the middle because it was farther away from the amps and whatever else was there. But now we have dressing rooms and things that our position has grown so much from the days when we started, when we were just, oh, it's those people.
Like Connie said, there's a time, and I know that we've all faced it, that there's a time when a stunt man goes on a given set, and I've heard it more than once in my lifetime, that all of a sudden, because you're there, you being any one of you there, all of a sudden, I heard them say to one another, there's a comfort zone because you're on the set. You foresee things that might happen that they didn't, and it's like saying, you know, I feel comfortable today. We're going to do some kind of thing, but hey, there's Connie, or there's Tom, or there's Pete. They're there. There's Jeannie Epper. Jesus, well, if she's on the set, I know it's going to be all right. Not that it wasn't going to be all right, but her presence, hypothetically, because of her background and the whole thing, with all of the people. When you walk in, it says Stuntmen's Association, Stunt Women's Association, black, white, or indifferent. All of a sudden, there's a comfort zone that you present on the set. Believe me, I know it has happened. I know you all have had the same experience. Believe me, I know it's true.
Hi, my name is Joe Vianella, and I was just wondering, since there's a lot of us younger stuntmen and women, I was wondering what each of you would give us for advice.
I'm talking a lot only because I've been there and seeing what maybe you might have wanted to do that you didn't do. And as you go through your career from a stunt person, the more that you invest in yourself, in technology, a little bit of acting, doesn't mean you have to be an Academy Award, but feel comfortable. If you want to be a stuntman, hey, learn how to ride a bike, hypothetically. Not because, but invest in yourself, because if you're looking at a long career, they'll come into play. You'll probably do more fights in your life than you will do anything, because that's something we do an awful lot of. But to be able to drive a car comfortably for what that person. There's schools now that you can go to, a class that didn't exist for the majority of us. We rented a car, got it back, and the guy said, Jesus, those tires seem to be pretty slim. And I said, from a young stuntman, stuntwoman standpoint, if this is the desire, if this is what you want to do, and if you look at it like anything else on a long-range plan, from here, when you get to there, it's so beneficial to you. Physically, you're covered for the rest of your life. You get a good pension, and hopefully along the way you've had a lot of help, and along the way possibly, and I know you probably would because everybody tries to, you're going to give back because you're going to remember who gave to you.
I got a good tip for you. I got more stunt jobs from my acting ability, and I've got more acting jobs because of my stunt ability. So it's very important,
Yes.
learn to act, or at least be comfortable with lines.
Yes.
Because you'll get a lot of stunt jobs if you can say a few lines. So that should be a big part of your career,
That's so
is
true.
learn how to act.
I've never been accused of using my mind.
And treat people good, the way you want to be treated.
I think the other thing for the young people in their day too, yesterday the guys who drove cars, the guys who did all the horsework stuff like that, weren't really anxious to help you. You follow me? It didn't happen. I mean, the Ergoins, and I love them, the Canuts, all these part of my life, but they didn't go out of the way to help you. Today our industry has changed. Not only do you have the Bob Yerkes place to go, the Rick Siemens car to go, different places of horseback, but the individual today kind of feels proud to maybe take somebody under their wing and help them. That wasn't yesterday. You learned a lot of what, and I did. I think I learned, I'll go back a long way, I think I learned a lot of my trade by trial and error and learning on the job. Honestly, I think I think a lot of us did that, you know, we just didn't know. I happened to be, there was a time at Warner Brothers when they had a little controversy about some stuff, and there was a gentleman by the name of Alan Pomeroy. And Alan Pomeroy decided to take 4 or 5 guys under his wing and maybe show them how to do a little tumbling. Did I know how to tumble? Not really. Fisticuffing, little things in general. I was fortunate enough to be one of those guys. And thanks to Alan Pomeroy, I think I became a good fight man. I'm told that I was. And the 4 guys was, by the way, A.C. Hudgens, who you don't know, Roy Jensen, who you do know, myself. And it just, like I said, our industry is saying, and now with the association, because most of us, including Connie and things like that, and we're proud of it. We carried 2 cards. We were an extra and we were a stuntman. In 1961, that was the change, and change for the best for everybody. And that's kind of the history of what we're talking about in a way today, really, is that, you know, Tony Santillo stood in on Batman and Robin, did stunts on Batman, Hubie Kearns and Victor Paul. I mean, hey, everybody worked on Batman and Robin, and everybody has a position. Hal Needham was a tree trimmer. He had a lot to do with this industry. And he was a personal friend of mine, and I love him to death. And like or dislike, he had a great impact on this industry, for the better, for the better. You know, and a lot of times you have to bend some noses and hurt some feelings to graduate. And you know what? The Stuntmen's Association, we graduated. Thank you.
I first want to real quickly thank everybody, the audience, for coming today. This has really been a great experiment for our community, and I look forward to cutting this and putting it together and sharing it with the rest of the community. And personally also want to thank Bobby, Roy, Jeannie, and Bob to take their time out to come today and spend it. I'm going to let the show end today with Roy wanting to share a poem that he wrote.
You know, some of the guys have heard this before because I enjoy telling it. It's about stunt people, and you know, there again, when I talk about stunt people, I'm talking about my life and so many of my good friends. But there's a poem that kind of fits everybody if you think about it, no matter what you do. A bunch of stunt people are sitting around, as we are here this day, and saying, God, what are we going to do, guys, when we can't do this anymore? And they start reminiscing a little bit, as we have today, nicely, and so it gets to me. And they said, what about it, Roy boy? What are you going to do? And they said, you know what? When I'm an old stunt man and I've done my last stunt, give me someone to talk to who remembers with pride the great ones of yesterday, who I watched so much when, gee God, when I was just a boy. When I'm an old stunt man, watch over me. You see, I'm not as tall as I used to be. Some of the fellows I work with have been taken away to a place I too will go someday. So just for a moment and just for a while, give me your presence, your care, and maybe even a smile. Because you see, guys, we did it all. Like the fights, the falls, and the chases and such. God, doing the things that we love so much. So as I watch the daily sunset go down, remember me as I was, not as I am, when I too become that old stuntman. Thank you, guys.
Thanks to the Stuntmen's Association for providing us a place to film this. Funding for this project was provided by ActionBiz.com, Stunt Phone, the Stunt Players Directory, and iStunt.